Hey, what is up, world? Jim Cirile and Tanya Klein here from Coverage Inc., the leader in screenplay analysis, development, and editing services for over 237 years. What's up, Tanya? How are you today?
I'm good. How about you?
By the way, I was exaggerating just then.
I think they got that.
Okay, good, cool. Just wanted to check in on that. So, what are we talking about today? Why are we here? Why
Why
are
are
any of
we
us here?
here? Why are we here? Why is anyone here? Okay,
I have
so
no idea.
today, so today we're going to talk about sci-fi scripts. So in particular, sci-fi scripts, because in the last few months we've gotten in quite a few sci-fi scripts, and many of them have had similar problems. So we figured we're going to do a video. Now, I love sci-fi. I really, really do. However, sci-fi screenplays tend to, well, again, all share sometimes problems, which are, for example, you have very long scenes of characters talking about scientific concepts.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that
Yeah,
does not work. Or you have you're a new writer and your sci-fi script's budget would be somewhere around $250 million.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. We definitely see that. So let's those are very valid points, but I think let's take a step back and answer the question before we start. Should emerging writers spec a sci-fi? Should you write a sci-fi spec script?
look, if that is your sweet spot, and here's the big and, that is your sweet spot, and you can do it on a budget and contained, and it's fresh, it's unique.
Right.
Look, we had this wonderful sci-fi script, very contained sci-fi script from a few years ago, where all the managers went nuts over. So,
Yep,
yes,
David Williams. Mhm.
exactly,
Yep.
exactly. So, yes,
And that was a small personal story, and it was contained with big sci-fi ideas. And
exactly.
that's why and people went nuts for it because yeah, I mean the budget for it would not be through the roof. I mean no, rampaging alien armies and things like that. So
Exactly. So, one of the big things to realize, no matter how cool the technology is, it still has to be a human story that people can, attach to the protagonist because they get
yes,
the protagonist, because they want the protagonist to succeed. It can't just be cool, big, hooky
right.
ideas and big, huge scientific concepts. You cannot, you absolutely need the human element.
So what Tanya's saying right now is actually probably the number one issue with sci-fi specs, feature specs that we see. They tend to be written by, very big-brained individuals, people who read a lot of sci-fi. There's nothing wrong with that at all. Quite the contrary. But what they often miss, they get so overwhelmed in the techno babble and the huge concepts and the fascinating worlds and characters is they forget exactly what Tanya was just talking about, which is at its core a relatable and interesting human story.
Exactly. Because no matter how cool your concept is, no matter how visual it is, an audience and frankly the gatekeepers still need to read the story and go, oh, I want this person to succeed, I want to know how it ends, I really like this character.
Right. And it doesn't necessarily have to be a human. It's perfectly fine if it's a non-human character on another world or something, but we still have to be able to relate to that person and have them have some sort of hero's journey. But just to add to what we were just talking about, this is the exact reason why of our team of 35 to 40 writers, sorry, readers, screenplay readers, which varies depending on time of year and who's available or not. But let's say 35 at any given time. The one genre that people want to read the least is sci-fi. And that includes people who love sci-fi movies, like real sci-fi fans. Tanya and I are sci-fi fans. We love good sci-fi stories. We read sci-fi. We watch sci-fi on TV. Some of our favorite stuff, The Expanse, B5, great, great, great stuff, right? And yet when we get a sci-fi spec script, our hackles rise. Like, uh-oh, okay, because we know 90% of the time it's going to be exactly what I was just talking about before, sort of, an exercise rather than a story, an immersive story. So this would, I'd say, be the main thing to keep sci-fi writers, the main thing to sort of keep an eye on at the end of the day. You kind of have to get over people's preconceived notions that sci-fi, oof, it's going to be inaccessible.
Exactly. And the other thing to remember for sci-fi writers in particular, often your sci-fi story might lend itself more to TV than it does to features. And the reason for that is a lot of sci-fi stories build a huge, 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 huge world, complex, layered, new
Right.
cultures, this and that. And that doesn't all really work with the feature, really. So
Yeah.
that's why we have fantastic, I mean, there's some fantastic sci-fi TV series. I mean, Jim mentioned Babylon 5 or The Expanse or For All Mankind.
All Mankind, great show.
Yeah, so because doing the scope of these stories in a feature would be very, very difficult. And frankly, you would lose a lot.
Yeah, you have to edit so much just to even, which is one of the reasons why adapting a sci-fi book into a feature is so incredibly hard. You just have to leave out so much and offer this. Often the stuff that you're leaving out is the stuff that people really like about it, the complexity of these stories, and that's why it may work better in, like Tanya said, possibly a TV type medium. Just imagine if you took all 5 seasons of The Expanse and tried to do each one of those seasons as a single movie per
Yeah.
season. Eh?
Yeah, yeah. Um, and so the other thing, if you're writing a feature sci-fi, is pare it down. What is the concept, the one concept, not this whole series of concepts, not this, whole big world, not this big new scientific development. What is the one concept
Mm,
that you are trying to explore? And
yeah,
keep it at that, and also make sure that your protagonist is the one who has to deal with this concept, who carries the theme.
yeah, yeah. So you're kind of referring to double mumbo jumbo a little bit, which we should probably explain to people. But basically, it's a term coined by the late great Blake Snyder in the book Save the Cat, and it refers to too many ideas for a screenplay, too many big ideas, which is another problem we see, particularly with sci-fi writers. They've got lots of great ideas, and they try to cram them all into the same story, and that may not necessarily work, especially in a feature where people just kind of like it simple and clean and neat. And maybe you can get a couple of those ideas in along the way, but you might also reach the overload point. Some of these things, lots of times we've seen sci-fi specs that have so many good ideas that could be 4 scripts, if you parse them out like that. So yeah, keep it simple, keep it straightforward, and again, keep the focus on the protagonist.
Absolutely. And again, sci-fi, if you're writing a sci-fi spec, make sure your budget is not crazy.
Yeah.
So, I mean, stay away from the space battles, stay away from too much, too many aliens, too much mocap, all of that.
There are
Keep it as
ways to
simple as
do all of that.
possible.
There are ways to do all of that on a budget, but so many writers, especially sci-fi writers, they think you can do anything. The sky's the limit, and it really isn't. Yeah, I mean, if you're writing a big studio movie and they tell you go for it, that's one thing. But even so, that's not going to happen unless you're adapting, your own successful hit IP, a book you've written, or someone else's IP. But otherwise, if your movie gets made, it's going to be made on a budget, even if it is a studio film. So, a great example of this is look at Moon, right? From about, I don't know, 15 years ago or so. But, basically contained to, just the space station, a couple of characters, and that's it. Or Ex Machina, that's another one. Some really big ideas, mostly contained to just a single location, couple of characters, and some cool special effects. Yes, absolutely. But it's not like non-stop, you know. Oh, hello, kitty
Yes, say hi
cat.
to the cat.
Hello, kitty cat. And if you
My
have to
cat
have,
is an alien. Okay, so that was my concept. That was a very simple concept, for example.
and if you have to have a big space battle or two, then make those your set pieces. You can have two or three big set pieces in a story just as long as you keep it contained the rest of the time. Another great example, Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan. So many people haven't seen this movie. It's one of the best sci-fi movies ever made. And there's really only two space battles in that movie. And they're amazing and they're brief and but they're so good mainly because there's so much build up to get to that point, and then when we do get to them, they deliver the goods. And the budget for that movie was $15 million.
And again, that was what now, 25 years ago? No, 30?
40
40? Really?
40 years ago. Yeah, 40 years ago. But still, even in contemporary money, that would be what, 50, 60
Yeah,
million.
I mean, it would still be,
Would
yeah,
be low. I
yeah.
mean, less than a pilot of a lot of television shows, for crying out loud. So really, look, sci-fi writers, we are not trying to rain on your parade. Just the opposite. We are just encouraging you to keep in mind what the industry looks for so that you can have the best chance of success. We are absolutely pulling for you to write a great sci-fi spec script that gets set up just like David Williams did a couple of
Yeah,
years ago.
exactly. So basically, you have to remember that you have to get past the gatekeepers.
Yep.
And they're looking for certain things and they're not looking for other things.
Yeah, and those huge budgets are reserved for, IP, stuff that's adapted from successful IP from another medium. Then you get, the $200 million budgets. The rest of the time, think of your budget as somewhere between 5 and 50 million and write accordingly.
Yeah,
There you
that's
go.
it.
All right. Thanks for watching, folks. Remember to smash that like button, hit subscribe, and if you dug this video, watch some more. We have lots of them. And tell a friend, tell two friends, tell 7 friends. Yeah.
Well, and also, by the way, you can always email us with questions at info@coverageinc, INK, coverageinc.com.
Advice is always free. Peace out.